Kenneth Williams. Even though we don't exactly know where we're going, Kenneth, at least for the next half hour, let's begin where you began. You were first a draftsman and then you moved into showbiz. How did you make that jump?
Well, it was all a series of accidents, ostensibly anyway, because I joined the army and they took into account my previous work, i.e. I was a draftsman, so they shoved me into the survey section of the Royal Engineers. And I did do that. It was largely maps which were... We had to put onto the maps the air reconnaissance photograph information which the RAF had gathered. And then we printed these maps and they were used as a target.
Did you enjoy that job?
I enjoyed it insofar as it was congenial. There were nice people you worked with, and the work was interesting in the sense that one knew one was actually connected with an end product. But it didn't fulfill me, no. I can't say I ever had a sense of fulfillment, no.
Well, from one creative job, perhaps with less fulfillment, to acting, how did you actually make that jump? Was that in your army days?
Yes, that was entirely due to army, because when the war finished, I found myself in Ceylon, and they said that if we felt that we were in the wrong regiment, if we felt that we had talents which were not being exploited in our present jobs, we could transfer. And I'd found out that there was, with the ending of ENSA, a new organisation going to be formed called CSE, Combined Services Entertainment. In other words, the services were going to make their own entertainment. It consisted of Army, Navy and Air Force, all combining to provide talent, but in every sense, you know, not only the acting, but the transportation, everything was done by the services.
And did you volunteer for this?
Yes, I did. I saw that there was an audition being held in Singapore, and so I went to the welfare officer and asked if I could go to Singapore, and I got a boat from Colombo and went to Singapore, and at the Victoria Theatre there, which was used during the day for Japanese war crimes tribunals, and at night they put on shows. One of those extraordinary paradoxes for a building.
Indeed, incredible contrast. When you went for your audition, was it the Kenneth Williams we know today?
I walked on the stage and they said, "What do you do?" And I said, "Impersonations." And they said, "What sort of impersonation?" I said, "I do Suzette Tari, I do Winston Churchill, I did those sort of people." And they said, "Well, go ahead and do them." And I started all this Churchill, you know, "We shall fight on the beaches, we're on the landing ground, dead in the air." And I did all this, and they said, "Yes." And there was a lot of sort of mooming and ahhing coming from the stalls. And then they said, "RTU." And this RTU was echoed all over the building, and a corporal in the wings said, "RTU, come on, off." And I said, when I got into them, he said, "What does it mean?" And he said, "Return to unit. They don't consider you suitable." And I was appalled, because I told everybody, you see, when I left my outfit, that I was going to be a great star in the Combined Services Entertainment set-up. I never dreamed I would be turned down. I thought my impersonation was really very good.
What happened then?
Well, I cried. I did all that. You see, you've got to cry a lot, you know. I used to cry continually in moments of great adversity. If I was on a charge, I was once on a charge for smoking on duty. I was on duty at midnight outside an armory in Bombay, and I was caught by the officer with a cigarette. Another sentry who was doing the same thing swallowed his, but I hadn't got that kind of, you know, brilliant presence of mind, marvellous aplomb with which you greet an emergency. I just stood there with the fag. I was told afterwards, holding it like a duchess. And when I came, I was brought before the OC, because it's a signal crime, you know, to be caught doing a thing like that on duty, especially outside an armory. And in the period that I'm talking about, which is the emergence of independence for India. And a lot of arms were sought by insurrectionists and goodness knows what. So it was very serious indeed. And the corporal said to me before I was marched in, "There's a glass house for you." So I stood there in front of the officer crying, I feel so, and moaning. And eventually you do cause such discomfort to people like, you know, regular army officers,
you were
that they
just
want
putting
to
this
get
on,
rid of
were
you.
you? Were you putting this on?
Yes, I was consummate actor. Yeah, I was very good. And so I cried a lot at this audition and went into the stalls and begged them not to chuck me out, you see. And it moved them, and they said, "Well, I mean, we don't consider your performing any good. What did you do before you came?" And I said, "I'd been a draftsman." And they said, "Could you draw posters for us? Because we're having them printed in Singapore by a Chinese firm, and some of them are very bad indeed, and they get the type all wrong." So I said, "Yes, I could." And so that's how I got into it.
Let's take another jump still further back, because I wonder what your childhood days, what sort of influence were these on your acting career?
Oh, well, my first experience of acting was at school. And unquestionably it came to me through the English master, you know. They taught us all kinds of things in English, in the English lessons, and drama was very much a part of the curriculum.
You were brought up in the King's Cross area, right?
That's right, yes. My school was in Manchester Street School. It's now called something else, but it's right in front of that great station. And the modern part of the town hall now is in front of it. But it was then a jolly good school, I thought, and we had a big rooftop area where we rehearsed the plays, and we every year did a Christmas play, and I was the princess in The Rose and the Ring, and I loved it. I was marvellous, and that was a part which demanded enormous arrogance, and I loved doing that. Rushed around the stage with this great feather duster, turning everything into magical symbols, you know. I loved it.
Did you enjoy the feminine role?
I did then, yes, I enjoyed it very much. I had no idea of its implications, you see. It was essentially childish. And in that sense, children do rush in where angels fear to tread. And consequently, I just did it as, sheer glee and enjoyment of the moment. I had no idea of the real import of female impersonation. In fact, when I did come to do it seriously, much, much later on in my life, it was a colossal flop. You know, it was the rottenest thing I've ever done. And I had a very good friend come backstage and tell me why. I had no idea why I was bad. I really hadn't any idea.
Why?
It was the Colosseum. Pantomime. I was playing one of the ugly sisters. And this friend of mine came backstage and I said, "Oh, it's so discomforting. I don't know why I'm so bad, but I am very bad in this." And he said, "Of course you're bad, but surely you know why." And I said, "No, tell me." And he said, "Because your cleverness, your demonic quality as an actor, is something which is essentially you. That is to say, it's you in trousers that is funny. It's you that's... Your ability to shock and be demonic is only part of you as you really are. As soon as you say, I am not what I appear to be, as soon as you put it into another form, it ceases to be at all effective."
Well, indeed, you've amused and perhaps even shocked people in many of the Carry On films. Let's listen to a clip from another of those films, this time Carry On Dick, and you're trying to catch up with the notorious Dick Turpin.
Well, as I was saying, sir, all these hold-ups seem to have been happening within a 20-mile radius of this area here.
Oh, yes, well.
And so we can deduce from that Turpin's headquarters are somewhere around there.
What? Oh, any imbecile could see that, man.
Yes, well, I just wanted to make sure that you did.
Well, of course I did. Are you implying that any imbecile has got more sense than I have?
Oh, no, sir.
Well, you're often cast in the role of that rather pompous, if not an imbecile, at least a fool. Do you enjoy that part, Kenneth?
Yes, I love it. I mean, any aspect of drama which shows us ourselves, I mean, in a laugh at yourself, in laugh at yourself light, is a good thing. Yes, I think it's very funny indeed. I love the idea of, anyway, pomposity being pricked and the balloon, punctured. I think that's one of the most essential ingredients in satire, isn't it? I mean, good satire does expose what authors think of as bogus, pompous, you know what I mean, the pretentious.
Is that what you're trying to do, then, in many of these Carry-On films?
Well, I mean, yes. I mean, the point is, any part you undertake, you're circumscribed to a great extent by what the author's done, and certainly by what the producers intend. There is only a small realm within which the actor is completely free, and don't forget that even that area is circumscribed again when it comes to the cutting room floor, because that's probably where a lot of your stuff is going to end up. In other words, the editor in a film, and the producer, of course, the director, is really the ultimate arbiter of what the public are going to see. But certainly within the small confines of the lines that are going to be seen, your interpretation is going to be paramount, and into that you can get a whole wealth of what you yourself want to get over.
Do you ever face occasions when perhaps you feel the kind of part you've got is morally offensive or morally wrong for you to be doing?
Well, I know this is an argument that's often used about these sorts of comedies. The idea is that people say, if you have a talent, you should put it to its best use, and surely this sort of work is awfully vulgar and all the rest of it, and you could do better if you tried. And, of course, this is a matter for conscience. The individual conscience has to square it within himself. But I don't worry about it, because no matter what jokes are made, I don't think any of them ever really do any damage to a real faith. I think that only the very shakiest of beliefs is going to be worried about the odd, rude joke. And in any case, I think that the broad stream of English humour, running from Chaucer through Shakespeare to, if you like, the McGill dirty postcard, is something which is very, very much a part of English culture. And I don't look upon the humour, which is ostensibly rude, vulgar, lewd, obscene, I don't look upon that as evil. I look upon it as a safety valve. I think there is much in modern men's lives, indeed in all of life, that is very frightening. And every now and again, you very much need the sort of safety valve that laughter supplies.
Indeed, laughter is one way of coping, perhaps, with disaster or with that safety valve you talk of. Religion is another way. Do you find religion helpful to you in your work?
I find it very odd that you draw the distinction between the two. You see, you said religion's another. To me, it's all bound up. And I think this is one of the tragedies, honestly I do, of modern thinking, that people do compartment things and say, oh, this is the day I'll be religious, or this is the hour I'll think religiously, and now I'm going to be ordinary. I mean, to me, it's all part and parcel of the same thing. Every single joke, even, has its point and purpose in an ultimate belief. I mean, it's not for nothing, for instance, that, the Christian church is founded very gaily with a pun. Peter says, on this rock, Petra, I found my church. And there is a pun, and it's a very gay business. It is fun, and there's an element of creativity. And this ossifying of original forms into liturgical chanting is, to me, awful. And that's why I don't think it's wrong to say to somebody, don't do it in parrot fashion, don't do Our Father which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Because you might as well be saying, Our Father which art in Hendon, hallowed be thy name, thy Kingston come, thy Wimbledon, in the earth as it is in Hendon, give us this Bray our maidenhead. You might as well go on like that, and you can do it. And you can do it, in fact, in public places with nobody knowing that you're doing anything wrong, because you can moan it and chant it in such a fashion. But if you really take it for what it's worth, and say, Our Father which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, and really intend that his name be hallowed, and really intend that his kingdom shall come, and believe that it will, on earth as it is in heaven, then the whole prayer becomes a refurbishing, and just like an old kettle you chuck out, you can take it back in, polish it up, and find that the copper will shine more brightly than you ever dreamed was possible. Because that's exactly what Christianity does. That is what it does for me. It makes me continually wonder whether it's the wonder of the sunset, or whether it's the wonder of one of his parables, like, don't pull up the tares, leave them with the wheat. Don't pull them up, leave them with the wheat to grow. And the magic of that, the magic of the words to the rabbinical doctors about the coin, render unto Caesar the things that are Caesar's, which puts the ball all into their court and in our court. It makes us examine, doesn't it, our own consciences, and in fact it sharpens and deepens the argument. And it says, yes, there is tremendous amount of muddy water here. Try and cleanse it, work it out. And it's the most exhilarating process. Again and again, Christianity is, in fact, a challenge to you to become bigger than you are at the present moment. Do you know what I mean? An unfolding, an endless process.
It almost seems banal to go back to a film clip, but let's do that. The film Carry On Behind, where you star as Professor Crump.
Here, you might knock or something. I was getting undressed.
Is luxury undressing an expedition? When I was in Gobi Desert, we did not undress for 10 weeks.
You didn't take your clothes off for 10 weeks.
Well, most of them.
I see.
Professor Crump and I are living in caravan together. We have been all over the site poking.
Look, don't you think it would be better if I wrote the report?
Who's expert on Romans, you or I?
You are.
Then will you please continue, Professor Crumper? First, we're finding remains of Roman paving, showing pictures of an erotic nature. One of the pictures is showing a Venus.
A what?
A Venus. Certainly you must know what a Venus is, no?
Oh, it's neither one thing nor the other, really, is it?
A Venus, Professor Crump, is the goddess of love.
Oh, you mean Venus?
Is what I'm saying. Venus.
Well, the Carry-On films thrive on the sexual double entendre, the embarrassment and even the nude bodies. Is that a kind of humour you prefer to leave behind after you've been in the film, or is it something that's part of you all the time?
Oh, yes, there's a tremendously childish element in me. I think it's Freud somewhere that says when the child is finished in a man, the man himself is finished. You know, the mind is closed, and it's only the open mind, the receptive mind, that's capable of any kind of creativity. And I am extremely childish. I like jokes like, you know, what do the toothpaste say to the toothbrush? Squeeze my bottom and I'll meet you outside the tube. I think it's terribly funny. And children delight in these daft puns and very simple little things. And I was recently at a house, and these children ran up to me and said, knock, knock, and I said, who is there? You have to say who is there. And they said, mayonnaise, and I said, mayonnaise, who? And they both chorused, mayonnaise, is he in the glory of the coming of the Lord? And I thought, you know, in actual fact, it's a marvellous joke, because their eyes will see the coming, because their eyes are clear and open. You know, we do indeed see through a glass darkly. And perhaps that's one of the delightful aspects of comedy, and it's in its most childish form, that it does take you right back to a very simplistic view. And you get some flavouring of what children enjoy.
You enjoy the company of kids?
Oh, I love the company of children, yes. I think they're absolutely enchanting. And they're totally direct. They dress nothing up in any kind of sophistication or diplomacy.
Do you ever wish that you'd had kids of your own?
Well, I mean, I suppose, you think of Bacon's thing about he that hath wife and children hath given hostages to fortune. And that's the thing I'm very much afraid of. I suppose, in a sense, it's my besetting sin. I am afraid of love. And love, of course, is the most appalling invasion of privacy that ever was invented. And I'm so intensely jealous of privacy, I'm so worried about losing it, that I suppose love, and of course children are part and parcel of that, aren't they? And therefore love is something in the physical sense which I don't know anything about. I take comfort, therefore, in the fact that I come to another kind of love. There is a spiritual kind of love which is available for all humanity, and there is an enormous amount of satisfaction and affection, not quite the same thing, but very near, to be obtained from actually being in contact, being friends, sharing as a mentor, those thoughts which are shoved out chaff and grain together.
What about in the street? Because you're obviously instantly recognisable when somebody sees you in the street. Do you find that an invasion of privacy?
Oh, yes, it is. I once thought it would be wonderful for people to look around in the street and say, that's who I am, etc., and echo my name. I once thought it would be wonderful. Now, I know that it's a dreary process of everlastingly having to, as Eliot says, find a face to meet the face that you must meet. And it's not just a question with me of them looking twice, it's a question of them looking and giggling, because they think, because I'm supposed to be a purveyor of humour, that I am always like that. I mean, 100 times people say, hello, kid, what's the matter? You looking down in the mouth? What's the matter with you, then? What's happened to you? Got all the cares of the world on your shoulder? You know, because I happen to be walking along looking serious. Because most of the time I am thinking in terms of seriousness. I'm very seldom thinking in terms of frivolity. Even if I'm thinking of putting a script together, which is supposed to be, in the end, funny, it's a serious business to actually think about doing it.
Well, one role you played which had I suppose an impressive side, if not a serious side, was the Qazi of Calabar in the film Carry On Up the Khyber. You're talking to Sid James as Sir Sidney Rough Diamond.
May the benevolence of the god Shivu bring blessings on your house.
And on yours.
And may his wisdom bring success in all your undertakings.
And in yours.
And may his radiance light up your life.
And up yours.
Well, the Qazi of Calabar, a grand title. Did you enjoy that character?
Yes, I did, as a matter of fact. I remember one critic saying they felt I was confined because of the very sober nature of this Eastern potentate, my own kind of demonic and hysterical humour, wasn't really allowed full reign. But I thought it was lovely, and I adored the costume, too. And the sets were absolutely magnificent. They were marvellous. And also it included location, don't forget, we went to Snowdonia for the Khyber Pass. That region, when you photographed, you know, closely, can be very like that northern part of India. And so that was fun, too, because we stayed in Beth Gellert. And I was home again in Mahen Walad Sainado, the home of the land of my fathers.
You talked earlier of arrogance in the actor, and I wondered with the Qazi of Calabar whether there wasn't a certain arrogance. Must there be arrogance in the actor?
Oh, there has to be a degree of arrogance, because I don't think anyone can walk onto a stage and ask a whole mass of people, be it 500 or 2,000, to look at him without his saying, I am worth looking at. And if you're going to do that with any degree of conviction, and you've got to do it, you know, with enough conviction to convince them, then you have to have a degree of arrogance. On the other hand, I think that the backstage area is the place where you need humility. It is in the preparation for the work that you need the humility to say, well, how much of the author am I going to realize? Because few human beings can encompass all the emotions. So you're going to say, well, what can I achieve? What am I going to go for? Is it going to be the melodrama? Is it going to be the youth of it? Is it going to be the maturity of it? And when you've decided on that and think, perhaps I might achieve certain other little bits as well, but certainly aim and make an aim for one particular salient point in the row, then that's where you'll need humility to decide how much you're capable of. Know your own limitations. You know, that Voltairean thing of digging your own bit of garden. Don't try and dig anybody else's. Otherwise you'll upset the apple cart completely.
There must be a very fine balance between the arrogance on the one hand and the humility on the other. How do you actually manage that balance?
I think if you exercise them both to the utmost of your capabilities, then you will create the tension between the two, which makes the tightrope on which you can walk, and you can actually walk on a tightrope that's taut enough. You can walk. I mean, there are occasions, of course, where you'll teeter, and in a sense that's where faith is the essential ingredient, because when you do teeter, you're in danger. You think, oh, I'm going to wobble, I'm wobbling, I'm going to fall. And in falling, you think you will fall into an abyss, but I think if I ever did, I've never fallen in the terms of performance, but the idea of falling is ever present, and I still am not afraid, because I think if I do fall, it'll be into the open palm. I think God's hand is stretched underneath like a vast safety net, and I don't think anyone ever does truly fall in that sense, ever. I don't think they ever do, you know. I really don't. There's a line in Delamere about all the birds that sing in heaven go flocking home to God. You know, it's a wonderful picture, isn't it, that? Go flocking home to God. It's beautiful because there's an echo of it in that Belloc thing about when Jesus Christ was 4 years old, the angels brought him toys of gold that no man ever bought or sold. But with these he would not play. He made him small fowl out of clay and blessed them till they flew away. And this, I think, is the essence of it, because this is the life-giving source, isn't it? It's saying that in breathing, you know, in the beginning there was the Word, and he breathed, and there was life. And in that breath, which is the Holy Spirit, that creation of life as an endless process, we have a glimpse, I think, of the divinity of creation. I now realize that the greatest teaching is in fact by example, and very often it's the sheer infection of what's loved that infects you. You know what I mean? Somebody loves something, they tell you about their love, and in their telling you, you become infected by their joy. Great critics have it. They're able to discuss something and lead you to a greater understanding, a wider experience, through their infectious enthusiasm for the subject.
You too share that infection that you're able to give to other people through your films. And certainly for me, one of my favourite Carry On films is Carry On Spying. And in it, you and Charles Hawtrey have a little encounter.
Oh, Mr. Simpkins, I hope you don't have to do much walking, because...
You're not supposed to wear it down there. You'll do yourself a mischief. It's supposed to be up here. See? All ready to get off a slick draw like that, you see? So make these things the right way round.
Oh, Mr. Simpkins, that was wonderful. I'm sure I'll never get my jaws off as slickly as that.
Well, leaving aside the sexual connotations, are you a person who acts quickly, who acts on impulse?
Oh, frequently, yes. In fact, I would say that instinctively I'm a very different creature to what I am in the intellectual sense. I mean, the intellectual, I suppose, lives by reason and acts on reason, and the instinctive acts on instinct.
As a public figure, you must be called on to support almost everything from a jumble sale to a highly controversial political cause, and probably reason has to come into this to some extent. What is your reaction to a lot of these requests?
Well, of course, I don't associate with myself publicly ever with a political cause, because I think an artist must always be free to laugh at all of them, since all isms are, to me, as a Christian, rubbish.
But in fact, not so long ago, you held a banner outside South Africa House in a political cause.
Well, it may seem political cause, when in actual fact it's simply the cause which Trevor Huddleston reminds us of again and again, that we are part of the brotherhood of mankind. And what was happening there was that two black Africans who'd acted in a play by Ethel Fugard, which was about the persecution of the human spirit, by the sort of machinations that all apartheid does, i.e. the labelling of men, instead of the saying they are all one human heart. Instead of doing that, you say one's black and one's yellow and one's green, all these daft isms, you see, which divide. And these men were imprisoned for acting in that, and therefore I ally with them, because I'm an actor too, I must be free always to portray whatever the imaginative vision of an author has created. I must be free to do that, whether it's Mephistopheles or an angel. I must be free to interpret. That's what Christianity teaches, the freedom of the individual spirit. And therefore I stood there with my banner, and I felt that I was right to do so. I think it would be cowardly not to. But I wouldn't hold a banner for a political reason, no. I would hold one for the reasons of the human spirit, yes.
We're drawing towards the end of the programme, Kenneth. I wonder whether you would, in fact, like to be somebody else other than the film actor Kenneth Williams.
Oh, yes, you mean if you could start all over again, you mean?
What would you do?
Oh, well, then, I would certainly study much harder at the school period, because only afterwards I did learn the value of academic training. Only long afterwards did I learn its great value. So therefore, if I really had hindsight, and this is a marvellous idea, isn't it, that you could really have all those things, I would at that school have done much, much more diligent studying and got myself into a university, and then hopefully I would have been able to teach. And what I would like to have been able to do would be to teach English literature in conjunction with the drama, so that I was doing what I enjoyed, i.e. acting, but also conveying the flavour of the entire corpus of English literature, you know, right from the Beowulf idea, the Anglo-Saxon chronicles, right the way through Shakespeare, Milton, to the Romantic poets. Yes, I'd like to see something like Cenci performed, Shelley.
In spite of that wish, Kenneth Williams, I think some of us would want to say, fortunately, you're the man you are, and we enjoy what you do for us and how you entertain us. Thank you for sharing both the comedy and humour of your public life and the more serious, reflective and even fallible side of your personal life. Let's give you the last word as we listen to a final excerpt, this time from Carry On, Jack.
Now, gentlemen, we may be a somewhat weary and depleted crew, but we must still welcome our captain aboard in a fitting and traditional manner.
Right, give them 3 hearty cheers, lads. Hip, hip. Hooray! patrol boat. They're pirates! Well, anyone can make a mistake.
Kenneth Williams has been talking to Owen Spencer Thomas.